uh, thank you, fellow Toastmaster, and uh, welcome, distinguished guests. Um, Success. There's financial success, and there's success in other aspects of life, like relationships. Now, I don't mean just relationships in the romantic sense. Let's talk about relationships at work, relationships with your friends. Uh, these relationships all require one thing: communication. Communication is the most important factor in order for us to be successful in our relationships. There's four elements of success that I've now become aware of, and I will touch on all of these four elements that have affected me personally. I will talk about personal events of my life to kind of relay to you the point that I'm trying to make of how these four elements, when understood and brought together, can increase the success of all of your relationships, whether it be personal relationships with your friends, romantic relationships, uh, relationships at work, professional relationships. So the four elements, okay? How many of you ever felt like you initiated a conversation with someone where you had maybe too much energy? You were too excited to tell a story about yourself that maybe you couldn't listen to what the other person was saying. And in retrospect, you maybe thought about how you maybe ignored that person, or maybe you saw a facial expression where that person wasn't enjoying the conversation as you thought you were. How many of you ever experienced something like that? Okay. What about where you maybe too strong tone? Maybe your tone was too strong and you were too direct to someone where you shut them down and you didn't give them a chance to maybe reply to you and give you their honest opinion. How many of you ever felt that way? Okay. How many of you ever felt like you've been taken advantage of in a situation where maybe you were put in a situation where you did something, but you didn't really want to do it and you couldn't talk your way out of it? How many of you ever felt like you were put in that position? All right. I myself have been there many times. And then lastly, how many of you have ever been put in a position where you were too analytical and you just overanalyzed everything and didn't even end up making a decision at the end of the day, and you just felt like you had all this information without a clear path? All right. All of these things that I just mentioned have a description for them. The first one is initiating. That is one of my most strongest qualities, I believe. I am very good at initiating a conversation, but I am a very poor listener. I always am excited to maybe, for example, if I'm going to impress a girl, in the past, I would maybe brag about things that I would do, places I've been to, how much money I have, or maybe I don't have, but I'll pretend I have, right? So I don't listen to what they're saying to me, so I don't pay attention to the information that they're saying. But if I learn to harness that energy where I can initiate a conversation, but be mindful of the response, I will have more information to work with, and therefore be able to guide that relationship with that female, and maybe get a second date. Now, when it comes to being direct, there have been times where when I'm too where I have initial a very comfortable relationship with someone, so I feel comfortable just speaking my mind and saying whatever's on my mind without being mindful of how I make other people feel. So, for example, in a job, I have a goal. My goal is to get the job. So I will say anything and everything to get that job without being mindful of what it means to do the things that I say. For example, I might talk about how consistent I am. without actually being consistent. And then when I get caught in situations at my job where it's awkward where I didn't perform at a consistent level, like I said I would, and then I have to explain myself of why I wasn't consistent, right? So I might be direct without having the proper information that it takes to be direct. Supportive. I like to be a good friend and a good guy, right? But you can't just be a good guy to everyone. There have been times where I've been put in situations with friends or casual acquaintances where they requested for me to do a favor for them, but because I didn't want to say no or didn't know how to say no, and I wanted to be supportive, I went ahead and did certain things that went either against my personal boundaries or maybe I just didn't have time to do it, but I did them anyway. That leaves us with a void in ourselves. It left me personally with a void of being resentful and then made me not want to be that way again. And then lastly, being analytical is my poorest quality of all. I usually say yes to uh, financial decisions without analyzing the whole situation. So these four elements, I want to picture them like a graph. Now that I'm being more mindful of what these four elements are, I try to apply them in real life. And in my real life experience, at work, I have formed better relationships with my coworkers. I have better leadership skills where I've created bonds through my affiliative leadership skill that I am also working on. These bonds have created way better relationships for me at work. I am learning to hang out with people that are on the same path as I am. So when I do a favor for someone and I'm supportive, I feel comfortable with whom I did it for, and it gives me satisfaction. So I am at peace and I am not stressed out over doing certain things for people that are not as mindful. I want to share with you guys a graph that I created so you have a visual sense of what I mean when I talk about these elements. Let me share my screen here. Can everyone see this?
I can see the screen, the chart.
Can you see the graph there now?
Yeah, a graph.
Okay, so I have the four labels of each style of communication, and I've graphed what my highest and my poorest is in order to evaluate myself. One of the biggest things to work within when you're working within is to evaluate what you're good at and what you're not good at in order to balance everything out. So the point of these isn't to be good at just one of these. The point of these is to understand each quality and understand how to use these different styles of communication in real life situations. Once you understand what each category is, you can guide yourself and practice using these in real life situations. So my challenge to all of you is to find your best style of communication and find your least best style of communication and find out what you have to work on, because it will help have, if we all have better relationships as a society, we can create better peace. in a sense, because when you have good relationships, you have less stress. Thank you.